Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit True of My Chest, and it's by user OldCountry4070. My husband stopped inviting me to his work events, and it's because the guys made fun of my breasts. My husband and I have been together for 9 years. He started his company with some friends of his a year after. He is the major owner. They have 120 employees now, 80% men. About a year ago, my husband has stopped taking me to company parties, events, dinners, etc. He always made up some excuse about taking mother-in-law instead or some other family member. Also, sometimes he didn't tell me at all that there was some event and just went by himself, the smaller events. He said it was because he wanted the rest of the family to celebrate him too. I was a bit hurt, but I thought that he was probably right. He is now in a big city in Europe on a big launch of a product. He took sister-in-law with him. I admit that I cried when he excluded me this time too, because this was a big deal for his company, but he promised that he would take me on a luxury vacation instead of just the two of us. This is his thing now. Every time I'm excluded, I get a trip or jewelry. I'm good friends with the other wives, the owners, and one of them is 8 months pregnant, so she wasn't in that city. She was surprised to know that I was home too, so we planned a lunch, and this is when she told me about an incident that happened at my husband's work. In one of the conference rooms, somebody forgot to turn the projector off from the previous meeting. The conference rooms are located in the middle with glasswork walls and doors so everybody can see inside. On the big screen, there was a list of names, the wives of the owners and some of the management, and my name was first, number 1, with 2, 3, 4 to 10 empty, and the next name on 11. My husband heard about this and they had an internal investigation. It turned out that a group of coworkers were having fun ranking the breasts of the wives. My husband was very angry. The wife who was telling me was very surprised that I didn't know, because this had created a buzz apparently and her husband told her about it. She assumed my husband told me too, but he didn't. When I asked her when this was, it was around the same time my husband stopped inviting me to his parties. I'm so hurt and embarrassed now. I didn't know he was ashamed of me. I'm 100% sure this is the reason why he doesn't want me there, and I don't know if I should confront him about it. I haven't done anything wrong, and at least I deserve to know what's been going on behind my back. I'm just so mad. OP, I don't think your husband is ashamed of you. I think he's trying to defuse a situation in a very stupid way by hurting your feelings and not telling you what is going on. Instead of doing what he should have done when he found out about what his coworkers had done, which, if I'm not mistaken, can be a fireable offense, depending on where you live, I guess. But he instead took you out of the equation. And just to be clear, you have done nothing wrong here. Your husband's coworkers behaved horribly, and your husband, unfortunately, made the wrong decision. OP, you definitely need to talk to your husband. When he comes back from his trip, ask him point blank about what happened with the investigation at work regarding the wife's ranking, and if that is the reason he's not taking you to work events anymore. And what do you guys think about this whole situation? Let me know what kind of advice you would give OP in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. I'm Your Zero says, I wouldn't jump straight to the conclusion that he's ashamed of you. He's just as likely, heck, I would say even more likely, to be ashamed that his peers and employees would make fun of you and the other wives, so he wanted to spare you from it. If I were in your shoes, I'd just tell him you found out from a coworker's wife and that you're not angry at him about what the other employees did. To me, it seems more like you're mad he kept something from you and that in the future you want to deal with this kind of thing together. Because you're life partners. Tell him that. Hopefully he'll understand your perspective. Mimi Frosh says, you need to talk to him. It's either he's protecting you from them, ashamed of you, or ashamed of what happened. Also, what happened to those guys? They should have been fired, suspended, or warned. If he didn't do anything about it besides getting angry, you have the right to be mad at him. Still wrong for excluding you because those men are at fault, not you. There's Beans says, OP, instead of giving him a reason for excluding you, let him tell you the reason himself. Confront him when he returns. Tell him that you've noticed that he has been excluding you, that it really hurts your feelings and you need to understand what is going on. Give him the space to tell you. Hopefully, he will tell you himself. But don't start out telling him that you know the reason. While you may be right that it is the reason, you don't know that with 100% certainty. Don't put words in his mouth. Let him say it himself. Additional information from OP's comments. Sorry, it is hard for me to know what to include and not include. Maybe some details are unnecessary and I left out important details. The co-workers that did this were some engineers that had booked the room for a late meeting. That is why the wife was surprised that I didn't know anything, because it became an inquiry at work. Some of these people were fired, others were bought out. Almost none of the guys from that group work there anymore. I don't know all the details. I think they were ranking on size or because he is the boss. I'm definitely not the most attractive of all the wives. I never wear provocative or revealing clothes or anything like that. It makes me sadder because if he is blaming me, then I don't know what I should have worn at the events. I'm so angry, and yes, I think he is embarrassed, to be honest, but it should be my decision if I find it disrespectful or not. I think he should have given me the choice to decide. When people would ask him where I was, he would say that I was busy or at my parents', which is not really a lie because I visit my parents or have girls' night on the days he is out at work events, but it's just because I'm not invited. I miss being a part of his work life. It's not something I've been thinking about because it didn't happen overnight. Sometimes one incident makes us think back and see how different things are now. Like, they would have their usual office parties just for the staff, but then they have bigger parties when it's usually with a +1, like the Christmas party, big launches, and collaborations. I was always his +1 since the start, and I never noticed any tension. Now he takes mother-in-law or another family member. For this trip, he took his older sister. Oh, and our lunches. We used to have lunch 2 times a week, but this past year, he either waits outside for me or cancels the lunch. Thank you for your comments. The majority seem to believe that my husband's reaction was the right and healthy one because he loves me and wants to protect me. The love part I understand. We both love each other, but the protect me part? I'm 38 and I can stand up for myself. Would it be okay if the roles were reversed? Do I have any right to keep him away if it was his D that was ranked by my colleagues? I'm not something to be hidden and protected. I don't know. I don't mean to offend the people that comment because I'm not ungrateful, but I really want to understand. Alright, well, the community had something to tell OP and she liked half of it. The other half she doesn't agree with. But a big changer that we found out in the extra context is that these guys were either fired or they were bought out of the company, so they're not really there anymore, which is a good thing. And now the debate becomes about whether the husband did the right thing or not, which in my opinion, no, he should have told OP since the beginning. Now, we are going to move on with the first of 2 updates, but before that, I gotta tell you about this playlist, which has stories that all have updates. Now let's move on. Hi again, I have a little update. I hope I don't ramble away your whole evening though. I don't know how to feel about everything right now. Before I update, I want to address something. I stand by the title. I got many messages, probably from men, asking why I called it making fun when they were rating me high. Let me tell you this, unsolicited compliments are harassment. A bunch of men that I don't know or care about discussing my and other women's bodies is not cute. I don't feel special and I don't get any satisfaction or confidence from it. Second, I think I made the top of the list basically because my husband is the owner, not because I'm humble bragging about my hotness. Anyway, my husband arrived this morning. Maybe I should have waited until tomorrow to talk to him and just spend the day cuddling. Oh well, I made it till lunch after his nap. I told him about my lunch with the other wife and asked him if he stopped taking me to company events because of what happened, and he simply said yes, didn't even try to deny it. I asked him why and he was surprised because it was obvious. He said he didn't want his colleagues ogling his wife and disrespecting him. He didn't tell me because he didn't want to upset or hurt me, and he was sorry that I found out. I told him that he should have let me decide what embarrassed and hurt me, that I felt like he had taken away my agency, and he got annoyed and said, "I don't want my private life mixed with my work life. I like to keep them separate." I tried to argue some more, but he just shut me down and said that this discussion was over. I didn't feel good afterward, but I dropped it anyway. He apologized later and told me to respect how he handled the situation. He felt undermined and disrespected when the gossip started about me and the other wives. So did the other high-ranking officers and management. But with me, there were more gruesome details. There were photoshopped smutty pictures and clips with my face that were being spread around. I'm a minority, so there was some elements of fetishism and racism involved. I was targeted more than the other women, and that's why the others didn't take the drastic measures my husband did. There was a huge inquiry with HR and IT departments involved to trace the source, and many were fired or bought out. My husband decided then that he didn't want this to happen ever again, and his solution was to separate work and private life. I didn't argue, I just listened to him. I have to say, and I know based on the support my husband got in my previous post, that you all will disagree with me, but I totally disagree with how he handled this. They did a great job taking this matter seriously and taking action against those who were involved. And I was what? Collateral damage? Casualties? I should have decided on something that targeted me as a person, but he did it for himself. He wanted to spare himself the headache and embarrassment or disrespect, not me. I have been with him since the start, and I have been his #1 believer even when things were rough in the beginning, and I basically own half his shares. All of this is so unfair. Extended from OP's comments. I don't want him to be an old school kind of guy. He is 36 and shouldn't be old school. I don't know what more I could tell him. I expressed my hurt and emotions very clearly, and all I got is this discussion is over. I want the old normal way of me being by his side. Also, to be very clear, I have my own job and career. I just like being a part of his work life. Maybe I'll go to my mom's for a while. I just don't want to leave the house and give him a chance to sweep this whole thing under the rug. One more thing, I didn't want to decide how to handle the situation with the employees. I believe that HR did the appropriate thing. I just don't like that I became a casualty, the only one for that matter. I was excluded from something I loved to be a part of because of something I didn't do. And the thing is that my husband is a totally different and stern person at work, and he seems to think this is a work thing. However, I also believe he's been traumatized by this experience because he is never the type to shut me down. He was on edge, and when I pressured him for more answers or argued, it was end of discussion. I did ask him if he was embarrassed by me, and it was actually the only time he showed emotions and said, of course not. Alright, well that gives us a lot more context as to how the husband handled things on his side. And I gotta say, I agree with OP, this should have been her decision. Maybe the husband's heart was in the right place, but he definitely went about it the wrong way regarding his wife. Anyways, now let's move on with the final update to see how this story ends. Before I start, I just want to say that I'm not divorcing my husband. We love each other. Anyway, my husband has been a bit standoffish towards me and me towards him. We didn't argue or fight, but we weren't all cuddly and fuzzy like we usually are. Weekends are something we look forward to because we, mostly he, work very long hours during the week and don't see much of each other. This weekend, I just kept to myself and met a few friends. I talked to him Saturday morning about us probably hitting a dead end and in need of some guidance, like counseling or therapy, or even my mother-in-law to mediate between us, but he adamantly refused, and it was, of course, end of discussion. To be honest, this side of him is very new and strange to me. He never dismissed me like this before. He always listened to and respected what I had to say, and he always came to me first for advice on anything, even work-related. Often, when I didn't understand the details, he just asked for general advice. It has been like this since we met. He has always trusted me. I guess when the problem was me, he didn't come to me for advice. Isn't that ironic? Anyway, today, I just felt like I wanted to eat lunch with my husband, like we used to do before this whole thing, after my workout, and I happened to be around his office 15 minutes before his lunchtime. I also happened to be wearing my workout gear that happened to be a bit cleavagey and maybe a bit very tight, but I had a jacket, so there was no problem, was there? I made sure that I said hi to everyone that I met on my way up to my husband's office, and I made sure to stay and chat with those I have known for years. My husband looked like he had seen a ghost. I told him that I was totally fine waiting outside until he could take his lunch break and that I could chat with his colleagues in the meantime, but he immediately wanted to leave. His facial expression was a mixture of amused and annoyed. When we were leaving the building, I made sure that I said hi to everyone I met. When we arrived at the restaurant, he said that he knew what I was doing, but I just said that I wanted to eat lunch with him and that I will continue to want to eat lunch with him until he started treating me as a human being with feelings as acute as his. He was still annoyed and didn't say anything more. We had a nice lunch date anyway. When he came home later, he was still angry with me and didn't talk much, but then after dinner, he came to me. He kissed me and apologized for everything. He said that he was trying to spare me, still, but that he was wrong to exclude me. I told him that we had a problem and that we probably needed help, and he said probably, but that he wasn't keen on the idea yet because we didn't really have any other issues. I told him that if he was trying to apologize so that I would stop showing up at his work, then he was sadly mistaken. He just laughed and told me that he knew me well enough not to try to stop me. Maybe less cleavage next time. I said yes. Honestly, I think we have serious issues here, and they are far from over or solved. I will try to be more open and talk to him more, and maybe I can persuade him to seek therapy for himself and for us as a couple. Anyway, I'm browsing dresses for the Christmas party. Mother-in-law's gonna need to sit this one out. OP's last update. Today's lunch went great. This time when I showed up, my husband had a very wide smile on his face. I waited for half an hour for him to finish his work and I had the chance to chat with several of his colleagues. Many of them asked me where I have been, especially the ladies. I told them that I have been busy with work. Lie, I only work part-time now. I think they know why I disappeared, to be honest. Anyway, as I said, the lunch was great. My husband is a bit more talkative. I think we can fix this. I hope that he will eventually feel safe enough to tell me how this incident has affected him and his mentality, because I don't want him to be hurt. Not alone anyway. Alright, well OP, I'm gonna call this a happy update in the making. You guys were able to address your issues and you both know that you need to work on this. Hopefully soon enough he'll feel ready to talk about it with a professional and with you of course. So in the meantime, I'm gonna wish the best in the future for both you and your husband OP. Take care and thank you for sharing. Now let's move on to the mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance and it's by user Canadian Cosmic Entity. Shut the F up, get in the truck and do what you're told. You got it. So I live in a pretty small city by American standards in Canada, around 130,000 people. People joke that it's a giant small town and it's hard to go somewhere without knowing someone who either knows you or heard of you. I run a small contracting business that maintains properties for seniors. Think grass mowing, tree trimming, etc. In the winter, there isn't a lot going on, so I lay off the summer crew and usually bounce around to different companies to help them with their snow removal. I hold a CDL as well as an equipment operator license, among others, so most of the larger companies know me and are more than happy to have me around. Over the weekend, I was called by the biggest company in my city to help with hauling snow to the city snow dump, a gravy job, and lots of hours. I had never worked with their crew but quickly got along with everyone except the company grump, which was expected. Of course, the company grump is the one working on the weekend loading trucks. After the first location, he gave me some cash to get us coffee. I met him at the next location and handed him his drink. He takes a drink and noticed it's wrong. He gets out of the Bobcat and throws the full, extra-large coffee into the distance, getting caught by the wind and spraying me with liquid, all while cursing me out. I decided to let it go. Everyone has been working long hours and, well, some people in construction are just giant man-children. I offered to grab him another drink and he declined. I went back to my truck to drink my coffee and talk to the other driver in my truck when the operator comes over to our truck to bitch at us about his coffee, after I offered to get him another. Shortly after, I realized I had his change in my pocket. Knowing this guy, I better return it. I walk over to the Bobcat to give him his money and let him know that if he did that again, there would be problems. We had a few words before he told me to shut the F up, get back in my truck, and do what I was told. And if I did, stuff like that wouldn't happen. So I did. I went back to my truck and did as I was told. Little did the operator know, he's been on thin ice, and I was told by his boss to let him know if we had problems with him. Furious, I jumped in my truck, called his boss, and went home. Not even 20 minutes later, I get a call from his boss telling me they fired him and begging me to come back. The moral of the story is to treat each other with respect, especially in the workplace. Well, OP, he wanted you to do what you were told, he just didn't think about how it could impact him. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.